Howdy, welcome back to Sacred Mountain. And we'll get into chapter 3. This is a fun one. Okay. Got Schooled is the name of this chapter for good reason. Wendy got a position teaching at a massage school in Bakersfield. She had worked for other schools teaching and was good at the sciences. She was the head instructor in anatomy and physiology. I was looking for work and can remember some of Wendy's experiences at the school. The first that comes to mind was when Wendy's students stood up for her when a code worker was being disrespectful. I honestly think the lady was jealous. Wendy had a student named Nico, and the entire class watched as this co-worker of Wendy's schooled Wendy in front of the students for using the printer for a handout that wasn't approved by the school. The disrespect was apparently epic. Not only that this lady was being an idiot about a copy machine, but more so that she reprimanded Wendy in front of the students. Nico was not going to let anyone talk to his teacher that way. I never met Nico, but he seemed really cool. It was lunch break and Wendy let the class go early because Wendy was so upset. While sitting on a lunch break fighting back tears and anger, Wendy heard a loud pop. She went and opened the door to see all the students hanging out and laughing. A few minutes later, Nico came in and said, "Miss Wendy, I just slashed the bitch's tire for you." F that bitch. It had to feel great as when he was driving away to see the lady standing in her car with a phone calling for help. While she was working, I was feeling like a bum at home. Not so easy to find work on the mountain, and commuting to Bakersfield needed to make sense. If gas and lunch was over $200 per week, then I would have to make a decent salary to be worth the commute. We soon learned that Lindy was pregnant with our first. Pressure was on, and to be unemployed while my pregnant wife was working sucked. Always pressure about money and how are we going to make it living way up in the middle of nowhere. I can remember my brother Tim making jokes that we all lived in Jumanji. Funny, but of course he was the only sibling who never visited the ranch. Nice, Tim. With all the pressure to just get a job, I did. I started working for JJ. He was a Nigerian businessman who was doing a startup sales business selling to convenience stores. I had an economy car and was hired to be a sales guy, visiting stores, cold calling for sales on this startup. There's some strategy that you can use to break the ice on a cold call. It was easier for JJ with his accent and super outgoing personality. This guy would say anything he wanted and it was always kind of funny. But seriously, how can you sell Suavitel blue without having a light blue? And where's the yellow one? You know, people need a choice. Also, what about the ladies? That was a real fun icebreaker. You had to have a female owner, no. If you had a female owner, I wouldn't go there, but JJ did. Batteries were a good one. So with the ladies, he'd say, "You have tampons, but no pads. The ladies need a choice. They need a choice. You gotta have both. You have one, you don't." And no one ever had both. So that was a fun icebreaker. Anyways, batteries were a good one. Always out at least one of a kind of the batteries, so you try to get them to buy batteries. It was actually very humbling being a college graduate, college football player, and now ranch owner selling female products and soap. I had some stores that I visited in Cottonwood area, Bakersfield. It was called The Wood, and it was a rougher area. So being the bud smoker that I am, I pulled past the store and parked in the dirt parking lot. I could park next to the store as there was a bunch of men smoking a blunt. I am a large, confident person, so I jumped out of my car, grabbed my clipboard, and hiked right through the middle of this little crew. And let me tell you, that wasn't only bud in that blunt. You could smell the crack cocaine, so I chuckled and I walked by and said, "How y'all doing?" I went in the store. The lady who worked there was very nice, and I sold her some batteries. On the way out, I was heckled a bit as I walked by the group. I got back in the car, looked inside to see my wallet, bong, jar of bud, and keys. Uh-oh. The doors were all locked and all the eyes were on me pulling at my locked car handle door. The window was slightly cracked a few inches. I grabbed the window, pulled, thinking I would just break it out and get into it. I had no idea the window would bend so far. They'd bend. It's weird. Just enough to painfully slide my arm in and unlock. Got the door open, then pulled my arm out with all my fours. I got home and had bruises from my forearm all the way up. I actually did okay for the first month and was due to get a payment of $1,700. Wendy had a rough day in school when a student threatened to kick her in the pregnant belly. She was one of those people who went to school to keep getting aid. Anyways, it was very upsetting for Wendy. It wasn't just that this 6'2" heavy-set black lady was threatening to hurt Wendy and kill our unborn child. It was the insult that the school blocked the low-life pig of a woman and backed this low-life pig of a woman, and Wendy had to accept her back into the class. So like after this girl says she's gonna kick Wendy in the belly, Wendy's got to take her back into class. That was probably the worst part for her. I do know for sure this incident was the driving force behind Wendy's moving on from teaching and opening her wellness business. A few days after the school incident, JJ and I were in the market standing in line. This was a Bivvies convenience store, the kind with some groceries, milk, eggs, and produce. JJ was really funny that day and was giving it to like absolutely everybody. The guy's like a comedian. He told me one time that his culture was to be a bit blunt with his words, and this guy was funny or offensive, depends on your perspective. We get into line behind a couple of massage students from Wendy's school. They had polo shirts on with the school's name, so I knew who they were from the school. The line is kind of long, and me and JJ are not in line to buy, but attempt to sell the owner. I can't help but notice the big one turn around, and if it wasn't that idiot that just threatened to kick my unborn child in my wife's belly. So I'm standing there, and I must have been giving her a mean eye or something, but JJ caught on to it. He says, really, really loud to me, "You don't like the melons, do you?" It was funny because we were standing right to some melons in the produce case next to me in line. I pointed at the melons in the case and shrugged my shoulders. He then again said, "What's up? You don't like the big melons?" I chuckled, not at what he was saying, but more his accent saying melons. You know, he said, "Oh, melons." I'm still looking at the produce case. So he hits my arm, and I look back at him and notice the two students and the rest of the store staring at him because, like, and there's a lot of people. He grabs his chest and says, "You know, big, sweaty melons?" I instantly get it and look at the student. He then says, "No, the big, gross, smelly melons," and motions to her. Then he says, "You know, titties, the sweaty, gross titties." It was so uncomfortably awesome. I gave a little chuckle at the time. I felt vindication and had no problem laughing later at the instant karma at play, right? That position with JJ ended shortly thereafter. He owed me for a month's work, and apparently there was a problem. My job was to make the sales getting purchase orders for batteries, Suavitel, Femida products galore. However, JJ was supposed to deliver and collect the money. Apparently the truck broke down and orders were delivered over a week late. Many of the orders were refused. JJ let me know payment would be minimal. Wendy called him back and let them know he owes the money. She was pregnant and feeling all the hormones. So she let them know he was driving to the office to collect the discounted amount or shoot him in the face. He agreed, and we went to the office, collected what was due, and I moved on in my career path. Thanks, babe. So, the end of chapter 3, back in the day, this is my lovely lady. Hey. The red one, yeah? Down.